Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for this live broadcast straight from the President's Room in the NSU Student Union. This is a special edition of the Student Government Association Student Fee Rescission Forum. So we're going to take it live here in just a moment. If you'd like to watch the live stream of the video, you can do so by visiting our Facebook page and click the link. We are streaming video live. So here shortly, we're going to join President Garrett Pierce to give his address to the Student Fee Forum. And if you'd like to participate in this forum, you still have time to make it to the President's Room. That is, again, the Student Union. Come now. It's starting at 6 o'clock, but you still got a few minutes to make it inside, and we will begin here shortly.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Garrett Pierce. I'm the president of the Student Government Association at Northwestern State. I don't want to speak to the specifics of this fee, but what I would like to speak to is where this fee is coming from, where the Student Government Association is coming from in their proposition of these fees to the student body. As you know, it's gone through our student senate, and it will be up for vote at the March 24th and 25th elections. And then that is the chance where the students will be able to decide whether or not they would like to vote to approve or to not approve this increase. I'd also like to thank all of you that are here at the forum, in addition to those who are listening through KNWD. I'd like to thank KNWD for live streaming this. There will also be a YouTube version of this available online for those of you that missed this forum. We'll be propagating that through social media. Above all, where this fee comes from, it has to do with the future of higher education and the budget cuts in the state of Louisiana. Unfortunately, Bobby Jindal and the legislature of the state of Louisiana, they don't place a high value on higher education in the state of Louisiana, which I think is apparent through the budget cuts that we're facing and that we have faced since 2008. Instead of acting as a legislative body and holding a constitutional convention in order to change the two places that can be cut in order to balance the budget in the state of Louisiana, which are higher education and healthcare. Instead, now the average student is having to absorb those costs in the form of budget cuts to universities as we have to pay more in tuition and fees. So I think the main point that I want to make here is that these cuts will be coming regardless. Increases will be coming regardless. With this fee, however, we're able to control exactly where these fees are going and the student services that they're going to so that they'll directly benefit our students. There's not much that we can do to protest increases of any sort. However, the SGA is hosting a higher education rally April 15th from 12 to 3 p.m. at the Capitol. So if anyone is interested in joining us in that on April 15th, we'll be NSU at 8 a.m. Please see me after the meeting. And I hope that you get all of your questions answered during this forum. Our intention is to answer all of your questions, and so the students have the most information available when they go to vote on March 24th. So thank you all.
All right, guys, I'm Shane Capel, the Student Government Association Advisor, and I'll be serving as the moderator for the forum. I just want to go through some brief information so everybody knows how this will work. We're going to keep this to an hour. We're going to this around 7 o'clock. I'll sort of judge how questions are going and try to wrap it up as close to 7 as possible. I want to make sure that everyone is respectful when addressing budget kids, members of the Student Government Association, myself as well. We want this to be an open process and to give students as much information as possible. If we don't know the answer to a particular question, I'll take your information down and we will figure out the answer to that question and get back to you as soon as possible. To help allow everyone to have a chance to speak, I may not call on you every single time you raise your hand, but if you're the only person who's raising their hand at any given moment, I probably will call on you. Let's see, I'm going to go over some general information about the fee revision and then allow some of the budget unit heads and advisors who are here in attendance to go over as well. For those areas who don't have someone here representing the particular fee, I'm familiar with each area to be able to answer some general questions about them. But again, if I'm not able to or someone in the room isn't able to, we'll take your information and get back to you. I'm going to go ahead and go over the sheet that everyone should have. The fee was originally scheduled a few weeks ago, and we were going to have it in the ballroom and have lots of technology available so that everyone can see it. Due to the campus closures, due to weather, I won't use snow days, the weather closures is more apt of an expression. We had to move the day of the forum. This room was really the only one that was available, so it's a much smaller format. And I just went ahead and printed this information out so everyone can have it, because you really can't see it on the screen that's in this room. So basically, what happened is we've been looking at this, and we being the Student Government Association, they have been looking at this for about a year now, looking at bringing some consistency to the way that the fees are assessed. If you look at their current assessment, you'll see that a lot of them are assessed at different hours, and there's this strange incremental increase from 5 hours to 12 hours, some at 3. So we try to bring consistency to the way that these fees are being assessed, and you'll see that on the proposed assessment. One amount was chosen to be assessed, and then most of these are going to be assessed at 3 hours. Students who attend the university have access to all the resources that these fees provide. The issue is that a lot of students were not assessed the fee. So any student could have participated in club sports, have picked up a copy of the potpourri without ever having actually paid for the potpourri, participated in the activities that the Student Government Association provides or the Student Activities Board provides without having paid into those fees. So we wanted to assess it to the students who actually have access to it. And at an hourly rate that would increase the revenues for a lot of these fees without actually increasing the actual fee. So we did basically some accounting magic to try to create as much new revenue as we could without increasing the fee by a substantial amount. You'll see at the bottom, towards the bottom where it says what do other schools pay, we have student self-assessed fees, which are those fees that students at particular universities have voted themselves to pay. These are extracurricular activities that are not covered under tuition or other university fees that students have said, we would like to have this in our university, and therefore we are willing to assess ourselves a tax, basically, this fee in order to pay for it. The university is really there to provide an education and to provide those resources necessary for them. However, in order to retain students and to ensure that they remain in the university, we have to offer other developmental activities outside of the classroom. Fraternity and sorority, a building that they can hang out in between classes and get something to eat, a facility that they can work out in, intramural activities, club sports, competitive organizations. Students, the way that you currently are having to fund the academic side due to the decrease in state revenues, you've always had to sort of bear the cost of everything that happens outside of the classroom. So that's where your student fees come from. We include university fees as well. Those are fees that the university has assessed on the student in addition to tuition. So the students didn't have a say in those particular fees. However, we wanted to include both student self-assessed fees and university fees because some of the fees that are student self-assessed here are university assessed at other institutions and vice versa. One example would be the student union fee. At some institutions, particularly those that have recently renovated or constructed a new union, that is a student self-assessed fee. The students themselves voted to put that fee on themselves to construct a union. Whereas when this building was built in 1966, 1967, the board at that time that oversaw colleges and universities said, okay, Northwestern State wants this building, the students have to pay a fee in order to maintain it. So the board imposed the fee on the students themselves didn't do it. However, several years ago, the student body wanted a new recreation center. They themselves voted to impose a $75 fee in order to renovate and expand wellness recreation activities. That was open 2005, so been here for about 10 years, and it doesn't look like a 10-year-old building for sure on the inside. It's kept in pretty good shape. But basically, what students pay now, what a full-time student would pay, is $204. And what this does, by sort of reassessing it, it's going to increase revenues by about $2 million. $2 million more into extracurricular activities and student self-assessed fee budgets. But the increase that students will pay is only going to be $69.75, which will still keep us at the low end of what other schools are paying. Nichols pays almost $800 in student and university fees. Nichols. So what that goes to exactly, I'm not 100% sure. I, as a citizen of Louisiana, not a student who pays these fees and who has visited the little campus down in Thibodeau, have not seen a return on the student's investment. But regardless, Nichols. Louisiana Tech, I want to point out that they are assessed on a quarterly basis. So even though theirs looks, it's still a lot more than what Northwestern State students pay. A lot of these are actually paid, if you go all 4 quarters, 4 times a year. So their actual fees, what they here will probably be a lot more than what you see there. So the discussions that we had, there was sort of a cap on what the president of the university and the dean of students were willing to raise these fees, or allow students to vote themselves to raise the fees. This is sort of the administrative side of this. There's a thing we have called the GRAD Act, and there are certain metrics that universities need to reach in order to increase their tuition. As state funding goes down, in order to make up for those cuts, universities have to raise tuition on the students, which is a horrific thing to do, but that's the way that things are right now in the state of Louisiana, at least for the time until we get some elected officials who sort of have a different philosophy of state-funded education. So you're only allowed to raise tuition a certain percentage to meet the Southern regional average. Now, so if Northwestern State reaches these metrics, say they can, the state will decrease from $20 per student. It's going to be a lot more than that. We'll just use that. But the university can only raise tuition another $100 a student. So the university is getting less and less money. Students are having to pay more and more money, but don't think that the university is getting more money because students are paying it. The amount that is being raised to students does not match the amount that's being cut by the state. Now, student self-assessed fees are included in that amount that it can be raised, overall cost of attendance. So what this would allow students to do is to dedicate part of that $100 to things you actually see. So every dollar that goes up on these fees is a dollar that can go up in tuition. So say for instance, the cost of attendance at the university was going to go up. The cost of attendance at the university is going to go up. It is, that's just a fact. You will actually have a choice to dedicate what some of that increase increase will go to. So you can lock in for this academic year at least. This is what we're going to make sure that some of this money goes towards, so that you will actually see an increased benefit out of everything that takes place outside the classroom. If you didn't do this and it were going to go up, theoretical $100 anyway, you really wouldn't see any change on campus because, except for maybe a decrease in something, because the revenues from the state and the tuition don't match up. So that's sort of the philosophy behind this, and why President Henderson was supportive of this as well. His theory is the cost of attendance is going up anyway. Students should be able to have a voice in dedicating some of that increase. So that's basically an overview of how the process went, the philosophy behind it. I want you to look at 3 fees on here that have stars or your representative, Union Board Drama. That's going to be renamed as the concert fee. That fee has been used for entertainment specifically in the union. It's been around for as long as the building's been around. There's sort of a change in philosophy of that. Students have expressed a desire for there to be more musical acts on campus, and a need for there to be more revenues for that. So this is really going to shift the focus from only small different kinds of entertainment in this building to musical entertainment that can be anywhere on campus. So that's going to rename that and sort of, in a general way, repurpose it. Union programs is going to be renamed Student Activities Board, because when you saw union programs, nobody had any idea what that was. That's the money that the Student Activities Board receives in order to put a program on campus. There is one new fee that is included in this revision, and that is a band fee. Students have expressed a desire to support the Spirit Northwestern Demon Marching Band, which is currently in Dublin, Ireland. They marched in St. Patrick's Day Parade in Dublin today. So, which no university funds went towards paying for, if anyone was interested. They raised a lot of their money. Their overall budget has decreased by a significant amount, yet they're still able to maintain, for the time being, the numbers of students who participate in band activities. The issue that they're going to run into soon, thus is the need for a band fee. They have been deferring maintenance on instruments, having to fix things in-house. They're going to have to replace uniforms at some point. And right now, they're sort of at a tipping point where if something doesn't change, they're not going to be able to do that. They're not going to be able to recruit the quality of students or the number of students. So that's sort of why that band fee was looked for. So what I'm going to do is we have several of the budget unit heads, and I'm going to allow them to come up and sort of go over what their area will see, what the need for reassessment is, what they currently do. And then I'll let each of the budget unit heads go through and sort of explain, and then afterwards open it up to questions, because I'm sure there might be some budget unit heads that have a lot more questions than others. So I want to make sure to get to all of them before we get questions from the student body. So I'll go ahead and call up Mr. Patrick Dubois first, if he'll go over some of the fees that he oversees. He is the director of the Learning Recreation Activities.
Thank you, Shane, and thank you for coming tonight. Some bad allergies tonight, excuse my voice. As Shane said, I actually oversee 4 budgets on here, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I trust that everybody in this room has been at the rack. I hope you've been at the rack, and I agree with Shane, it's 10 years old and it's in wonderful condition. We take great care of it, keep it clean, update all the equipment. So it's a wonderful place to go. And in fact, we have an intramural wiffle ball going on right now. So we always have activities going on besides you just going on your own. We have a lot of organized activities. The rack fee, I don't believe we've had any questions on that. It's a $75 fee that students voted in 1998. Okay. We do have an intramural fee. That's ongoing as well, and we have our assistant director over there right now, Jason Stelly, who is running an activity tonight. We provide at least 12 activities or events per semester, which is open to all the students. And it's fun. It's a lot of different things. It's outdoors, it's indoors. In fact, right now we have an NCAA bracket going on with basketball for men and women, so anybody can do that online. It's a lot of fun. Dr. Henderson's doing it, so I hope y'all do it and challenge Dr. Henderson at that. He has challenged you. We also have a rowing fee on here. And by the way, all these fees are staying the same, but I'm talking about them a little bit. Has anybody noticed all these rowers in town from other schools this week? Okay. Our rowing team is nationally known. We do very well as a rowing club. And if you've seen all these students on our campus and in the community, we have over 200 rowers in 5 different schools here this week. A lot of schools love to come down here and use the Cane River because it's such a, in general, we have good weather. Luckily, they weren't here last week or 10 days ago, but all the restaurants are filled with these students. I was at lunch today on campus. I saw about 100 rowers in our cafeteria today. This is great stuff for Northwestern State. We did have questions at our last forum about club sports. I'm happy to talk about that as well. We do have a surplus in that budget. We have about $100,000 in that budget right now. It takes in about $22,000 a year. And doing some more research in that, this RAC fee started in 1998. The actual starting of the building up around 2000, 2001 and ended in 2005. So really, we were running our programming at a basement Rapides. Nobody may not know what Rapides is here. It was a dorm over there where the UP1 is right now. But during those times, we really didn't have a facility to run anything. So this is where this surplus came from. Now, I hope you agree. Who saw what our fishing team did last week? That's big stuff. Okay, we had the actual winner of the Bassmasters Championship. It was a regional championship. We had the actual winner from Northwestern State. We had many schools here from all over the country participating, and that actual competition will be shown on ESPNU. And I hope y'all get to catch that because Northwestern State is going to be splashed all over ESPNU because of this. We're going to show our beautiful campus. We're going to show our talented students. I know a lot of students were interviewed by ESPN for this, so you're going to really enjoy all that. At this point, this is what I do and the budgets I oversee in these areas, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments, and I'll try to help you the best I can.
I think they might want to wait until after.
Sure.
All right, I'll go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I'll go ahead and Stephanie Nassau, who is the advisor for the Puerto Rico, and speak on some of the student media budgets.
I'm actually representing all student media this evening because our department head, Dr. Paula Furr, is with band in Dublin, Ireland, so she asked me to keep her represented. I'm actually the budget unit head and advisor for Potpourri, but we also have current sauce and KFWD, which fees on the sheet. And I guess I can also speak for Argus if anybody has any questions I can answer about that. That's our student literary magazine. It's separate from student media, but it also falls within our department. The main thing I think you might have a question about on the student fees, and it's actually revenue neutral, but I wanted to bring it up, is if you look at the sheet, you see that Potpourri was at $21 for 12 hours, and that looks like we're getting a huge budget cut, but it's actually revenue neutral because the $21 was only for students who were at 12 hours, and it was only assessed for the fall semester. So while the fees now will only $6 in 3 hours, and it will be assessed every semester. So that's pretty revenue neutral for us. I don't want you to look at it and think, wow, they're a huge decrease. Current stock, I believe they looked at their fees may increase just a little bit under the new assessment, but but it won't change much. And I know Daniel is here reporting the program, but for KNWD, their fees will increase. But I believe, and Daniel can correct me if I'm wrong, that part of that is wanting to be able to offer more in the way of programming like Dean Fest and opportunities like that. And I'm sure you're aware that when you bring bands in, bands charge more than they used to. And if you want to get good quality bands and the bands that I think the students here would like to hear, we have to be able to pay for those things. There's also lots of equipment down at the radio station. It's expensive equipment. And when you have to replace something, of course, it costs more than it used to. I can't really speak a whole lot to Argus, other than to say I know they want to continue to put out the type of publication they have in the past, and I think their rate is pretty revenue neutral also. Any questions or responses?
I'll say for them. Thank you very much. Now we'll have Mr. Greg Burke, Director of Athletics at Northwestern State, to come and speak on the athletic fee revision.
Thank you, Shane, and thank you everybody for being here. I think everybody in this room probably has heard Dr. Henderson, the new president, talk at one point or another about NSU being the premier regional university in the South and even in the country. And I believe that can happen. And I believe there's a lot of things that have to happen to get us there. And he believes, and I'm glad he does believe, that a very successful athletic program is a very important part of that process. I think this overall fee is really good for a university. It's the first time it's been reevaluated, honestly, in 10 years. So I think it's real good that there's been I give credit to Shane and to Garrett and the SGA for doing that. As far as for athletics, like I said, this university is going to take a big step up in its profile and stature. We have to be a part of that. And, it's a fact. Like I said this last time at the forum, the SGA is a fact. There's a 10 o'clock news or 10 o'clock sports segment every night. You pick up the newspaper, or in y'all's case, you get online and read the newspaper, and I still do that. But there's a sports section every day. That's just a fact. It's a part of our society. We talk in our department every day, coaches and student athletes, about the fact that we have an opportunity to enhance the profile of this university because there's that sports segment every night, there's that newspaper every day. And we feel like we've done a really good job of it. Even as recently as 2 days ago, if y'all have not heard, our women's basketball program went to Katy, Texas, and they had to win 4 games in 4 days, which is a lot of basketball. And they were the number 6 seed, and you don't necessarily expect the number 6 seed to win a tournament, but they did. It's their second straight tournament. It was live nationally on CBS Sports. And then the publicity that we've gotten even since that time, like yesterday morning in Shreveport, they had a very popular radio show called the Tim Fletcher Show. And Tim is a TV sportscaster at night, a radio guy during the day. But our head coach, Brooke Store, was on there for 35 minutes talking about NSU, she didn't just talk about basketball. They talked to her about Dr. Henderson. She talked about how there's so much excitement on our campus right now because of Dr. Henderson and all his new ideas, and he's going to do this and he's going to do that. Cannot put a value on that. And I will tell you guys, that championship that we won Sunday is our 8th championship in the last 24 months. That's a championship, and 5 different sports have won those. It's not like it's just been one sport kind of on a run. We have a very well-balanced athletic program, 8 championships in 24 months. That's 1 every 3 months. That's a pretty good pace. So basically what I'm saying is over and over and over. There's a lot of publicity for this university. I also think it's really important for you guys as students to know that we like to win, but we will win the right way, because as students, if we're not doing it in the classroom or we're not doing it in the community, and maybe the other way to say this, if we're failing in the classroom and we're not doing well in the community, then we don't really care if we're winning, because we're not representing it very well. Our student athletes had a 2.96 grade point average fall semester. That's the highest cumulative grade point average. You get 400 athletes. Some of them are 4.0s, and some of them have to work very hard just to pass. Like 2.96. Community service-wise, last year, our department did over 6,000 hours of community service, campus and community service, our athletes and our coaches. So we feel like we are a huge asset to this campus. The fee that we're asking for on this ballot is obviously an increase, but quite honestly, if somebody said, well, what's it going to go for? It's going to go for the same thing that when the fee was passed 7 or 8 years ago that it went for. It's just going to help us basically maintain basic operating dollars, team travel, make sure we can have 2 people to a room instead of 4 people to a room. Make sure that, after the game, grab Burger King on the way home. But before the game, if you're a Division I athlete, you need to go to an Olive Garden. I mean, we're not going to 5-star restaurants, but you need to go to the Olive Garden where you can get a piece of chicken or get a good salad or get some pasta, something that's going to give you some sustenance and some nourishment. Those are the kind of things where that money gets spent. And right now, as Shane talked about, budget's gotten tighter. And honestly, in some ways, I think the success I talked to you guys about, I almost think, I don't want it to be fool's gold to you. I don't want you to think, well, what do they need more money for? They're so successful. Our coaches are overachieving. Our staff and our administration is overachieving. This fee will give us adequate dollars to help us move forward and continue to sustain the success that we've been able to do over the last 3 years. And we think if we can do that, that in turn is going to help this university go to a new level. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to open the floor up for questions that can be directed at myself, budget unit heads or advisors, the student body president, or any other member of the Student Government Association. So if you have any questions whatsoever on the specifics of these fees, Corinne, the secretary for the Student Government Association, has a microphone since this is being broadcast over KNWD. You don't have to state your name if you don't want to, that's fine. But we just want to make sure that people who are listening and also those that may watch the video recording later can hear the question that was asked as well as the answer. So if anyone has any particular questions, I'll go ahead and entertain those now. Yes, ma'am.
So who has the control over this concert fee that we're about to, or like who has?
Okay, right now there is actual guidelines that are being worked on, and this is what the proposal is. It's going to be a committee that is made up of students from different departments on campus. So you'll have a representative from athletics, someone from student media, the Student Government Association, Student Activities Board, Creative and Performing Arts. That committee, as well as some others, that committee will work to identify musical acts to bring to campus and present those to the Student Activities Board. The committee's job will really just be to identify the acts. Student Activities Board will be responsible for putting on the act. The committee's job won't be to book the room, to do the contract and all that. So it'll be a group of students who are identified based on certain areas, appointed by groups that they represent, or the directors of certain schools or advisors, or the dean of students or the Student Government Association or Student Activities Board.
Could that be paired with something like Demon Fest?
It could, absolutely it could. Now, there was a question about why would there be a need for a concert fee if there was going to be an increase in KNWD's budget for Demon Fest. There are 2 different focuses. Demon Fest is mainly about local talent, putting on a concert consisting of local talent. The concert fee would be geared more towards bringing in a bigger name act. However, the way that the guidelines would be set up, there could be collaboration between KNWD and the concert fee as well. So yes, we want to keep these things as broad as they can. We like to be collaborative. We like to share resources, especially in the state of Louisiana and in Northwestern State where resources are few and far between. So yes, if the committee did desire to partner with KNWD in order to bring in an even bigger act than each individual budget would allow, that would be allowed under the concert fees as they're being proposed right now. They still have to pass through the Senate on the Student Government Association. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank
All right,
you.
thank you, thank you. All right. Any other questions about athletics, Student Government Association, SAB? Anything in particular? Yeah, sure.
My question is more for the intramurals fee. I just had a question. Why is it that some intramurals, whenever you sign up a team, you have to pay fees and some you don't, but yet students still pay a self-assessed fee?
We call these the major sports, the major 4 sports, and these are teams that in the end will end up going to represent Northwestern. The winning team locally here on campus will represent Northwestern at the state tournament. And it's usually at a different university, and sometimes we get to host it. But these fees sometimes help with these travel expenses so we can take these students down to these tournaments. I can't tell you when this fee started, but it's worked out well, and we get to take these students on a good trip and they always represent Northwestern well. Sure.
To piggyback on that question, I was actually at a meeting where Jason Stelly was at, and he was asked about that fee. It is to guarantee. They used to have an issue with members of the team that was supposed to go compete after everything had been paid for, not showing up. So when they started assessing the smaller fee for these major sports, it sort of guaranteed that there was some skin in the game, basically, for the student who was participating. And they ended up not having that problem anymore with students just not showing up because they themselves had sort of paid some of their money to go towards covering the cost of the trip. So, yes.
This is for the athletics guys. Would you be able to outline the budget shortfalls that you're looking to correct with these student fee increases?
Sure. And feel free to get Ms. Roxanne too.
Word to the wise, always bring your business manager with you. Well, I mentioned this at the previous SGA forum, but just in scholarships alone, and I know that Shane already talked about the fact that it's a very bad cycle where state government cuts higher ed increases scholarships, you guys all pay more. Well, in athletics, only 25% of our athletes are actually on a full scholarship. The other 75% are on partials. I mean, it might be 10%, it might be, but the bottom line is, the percentage increases though. So if somebody's on a 10% scholarship and your tuition goes up 10%, then basically our whole scholarship budget goes up 10%, whether it's somebody who's on a full or somebody who's on a quarter or whatever. And when you add that all up together over the last, say, about 6 years, what, Roxanne, well over $1 million? Well over $1 million. So if you've taken accounting 101 and you've got expenses and you've got revenues, and on that expense side, put over the last 5 to 6 years over $1 million over here, at a school like ours, it's we're not LSU. It's not easy to just make up $1 million because that doesn't even take into account the buses go up, health insurance goes up. I mean, we had a lot of our employees have not had a raise, as has a lot of people on this campus, in over 5 to 6 years, but the state keeps raising the cost of their benefits. So like last year, what was it, like $35,000 or something like that our budget got a $35,000 increase simply and nobody got a raise, but just to pay the same people the same amount of money, it cost us $35,000 more dollars. So I don't know if that's kind of what you're looking for, but those are a couple of examples. The scholarship is the big one. And I guess in case anybody in their head is saying, well, why don't you just cut scholarships then? Well, there's 2 reasons not to do it. And in every sport, there's a maximum number of scholarships that we're allowed to award. And I'll take softball as an example, 2-time conference champs, by the way. But if suddenly we went to our softball coach and said, you can't give 12 scholarships anymore because we don't have enough money, you have to give 11. First of all, that's probably 2 or maybe 3 young ladies who don't get to come here and play softball. And one of them might be the best pitcher that we never got to bring to our campus. But to me, more importantly, that's 2 to 3 young ladies that may never get a chance to go to college and earn a degree, because for some of them, this scholarship or partial scholarship is the only way they can afford to do it. Okay.
Drew, yes.
Yeah, this may be more for you, Shane, than anyone that's here, but I noticed that we didn't have anyone from the Creative and Performing Arts Department to explain things like the artist series and the drama fee. And I think those are the only 2 on this?
Yeah,
page?
sure. I can answer those. And it's because they're all in Ireland for that trip. But yeah, I can touch on those. Now, the artist series is used for bringing in, if you ever get those messengers that has, so-and-so is performing in the piano series, Louisiana piano series, that's what that does. That fee goes to bring in musical acts for creative and performing arts, or visiting artists or things like that. So it exposes students to professionals in the creative and performing arts, so they can sort of learn firsthand more about the craft, about music, about dance, about the creative arts as well. The drama fee is specifically set up to support the Department of Theater and Dance. Everything that you see during a production in a Fredericks, McGill, anywhere else on campus, it goes towards costumes, it goes towards building the sets, it goes towards makeup, it goes towards, which is actually a big expense, is paying for the rights of the play that's being shown. You can't just pick up a book and say, oh, we're going to do this play. You have to pay the rights for that. So what this would do, and it also goes towards recruiting for theater and dance as well. There are very few students in the creative and performing arts who chose Northwestern State without having seen or heard a performance at Northwestern State or somewhere else by Northwestern State. So hearing the band perform, watching the band perform, attending a performance at Kappa, or seeing a group, a theater group or a dance troupe or something like that perform somewhere else. So that's what that fee is for as well. So what you would see with that increase in the revenues, not necessarily for raising the overall fee, because we're getting more money by assessing the fee to more students, is you would see higher quality visiting artists, and you would also see really sort of a level in the bar being raised in how the performances are on campus, which are really already stellar. Kappa is a jewel at Northwestern State. What they're able to do, the small rural college has one of the best schools of creative and performing arts, and the shows that they put on are really on caliber with some that you see on a national level. It's incredible. And then I alluded to this earlier, that band fee would go to specifically assist the operations of the Spirit of Northwestern Marching Band. One of the benefits that having a fee helps with as well is the way that their budget is currently set up. They can't have anything roll over. So if they need to spend $50,000 on something and they only have $10,000 in their budget at the end of the fiscal year, they can't save up that $10,000 over 5 years. It's taken from them and they have to start over again. With this fee, they could save up money. So when they have to spend $100,000 on buying new uniforms every 10 years, they can set aside $10,000 over a 10-year span to pay for, or however much money to pay for whatever it is that they need. And you'll see that a lot as well in some of these fees. You'll see a surplus, but a lot of times it's an intended surplus to save up in order to make a bigger purchase. So does that answer your question? Okay.
I do have another question that I've had some asking about, the Natchitoches speaker fee. Could you explain that, especially for the students that may be listening at home?
Yes, I sure can. Years ago, there used to be a program here on the NSU campus called the Distinguished Lecture Series. The university brought in big name speakers that really enhanced the academic reputation of the university. And students paid a fee that helped bring in these speakers. Maya Angelou, Coretta Scott King, William F. Buckley, Pearl Bailey, a lot of the movers and the shakers at that time frame. It was really big in the 80s and early 90s. The equivalent of that would bring in Anderson Cooper or Bill O'Reilly or someone like that, that caliber. That's the caliber of people that were brought in at that time. What has happened is, as these speaker fees have increased, the revenue from the fee has remained the same. So it only brings in about $20,000 an academic year, and you can only use about 75 to 80% of that money it brings in. You can't spend 20 to 25% of money that's brought in based on the student fee. So what this would do is it would increase the revenues to about $112,000. So the university would be able to bring in big caliber speakers again, the way that it used to whenever the Distinguished Lecture Series existed, which really raises the profile of the university. A lot of students who attended here in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s were really inspired to go into their careers by some of the speakers that used to be brought here on campus. Dr. Henderson, if you follow him on Twitter, you may see him tweet a lot of quotes by Langston Hughes. He was a student whenever Maya Angelou came to campus, and she introduced him to Langston Hughes. She read from his works, and he has been hooked on Langston Hughes ever since then. So that's sort of the impact that these speakers can have on someone. Someone may be inspired to become the next great Southern author, or be inspired to go into newscasting, or you know, become an advocate for a specific group or something, just because they saw a person who inspired them to go into that particular field. We would be able to do that again and really raise the academic profile of the university with the increase in revenues for that particular fee, which the Student Government Association oversees. And there are talks about sort of forming a university committee that would bring back the Distinguished Lecture Series, where there would be individuals from all areas of campus life, sort of like the concert fee that I alluded to, and they would determine what is part of the Distinguished Lecture Series. And because right now people just sort of steal the name. It doesn't exist in any formal capacity. They just say, oh, this is part of the Distinguished Lecture Series. The Distinguished Lecture Series doesn't exist anymore in any official capacity, but it would again with this. Any other? Yes.
If you assess the rack fee at 3 hours instead of 5, would you see a difference as far as increase in revenues?
You would see a difference in the increase of revenues, however, and that was initially on there. However, Dr. Henderson himself requested that it be backed off to 5 hours. For a student taking one class, he didn't want that $75 jump. So that's why that one is remaining at 5 hours, whereas everything else is being brought down to 3. Dr. Henderson didn't want that student taking that one class to get hit with so much of an increase. So that's the reason for that. If there's any comment you would like to make on that, Patrick. Okay. Any other questions? Be more than happy to answer anything at all. Yes, Legarius.
Shane, you worried me by the way you said my name, but
I apologize.
All right. Earlier you spoke about how there's like a limit to how much schools can increase.
Right.
And you said that there's consequences if the school goes over or hits that limit. Can you go into a little bit more about
absolutely.
that and tell us what's happening to some of the schools that have hit this? Because I'm positive Northwestern isn't one of them.
No, Northwestern is not one of them. One of them is Nichols. What Nichols did a few years ago is they created what was called like a student engagement fee. So there was this one broad fee that students would pay that would get divided up and sent out to different areas of campus, like spirit groups, athletics, student media, student government, student activities board, those kind of things. And they tied it to a percentage of tuition. So as tuition went up, the fee would go up as well. What has happened at poor little Nichols, when they did that, and I don't know how anyone didn't catch this down in Baton Rouge, as tuition has gone up, that fee has gone up, which figures into the cost of attendance. So they have hit their ceiling on what they can raise to offset budget cuts. So when these currently $600 million budget cuts, which hopefully it won't end up being that, come through, Nichols cannot raise tuition to offset what they're going to be cut. And that is a catastrophic position to be in. If you're going to have your budget reduced by, $7-10 million and you can't do anything to increase your revenues by raising tuition, they're going to be in a very, very bad spot. And so what was tried before because another school had done it, was there was an attempt to sort of do a fee revision that was tied to a percentage. And the student body didn't pass that. The student body was not comfortable with the percentage. And it's actually a good thing that it was rejected that first time, because we might be in that same position if it had. In fact, whenever we were working on these revisions, the new vice president for finances for the University of Louisiana system said that we could not come up with a method that tied these student self-assessed fees to a percentage of tuition because of what happened at Nichols. So we're in a very good position. We're one of the, there are some schools in the University of Louisiana system, and I said this at the last Student Government Association meeting, and I'll say it again, that are not well off financially. And then there are 3 that are pretty good financially, financially sound. And we are one of the 3 that are in a very good position financially. And the others, for various reasons that aren't of the 3, one of them is Nichols, and it is very much tied to what they did with how they do the fee. I mean, the students pay almost $800 in fees in addition to their tuition that they pay, $800. And so they might have a surplus of money in these student assessed fee accounts, but they're not going to be able to do anything to not have to lay off faculty or shutter programs or things like that, or lay off staff. So that's why we feel very comfortable with this. And I mean, for every dollar that this does go up, it's a dollar that tuition can't be raised. But Dr. Henderson is very comfortable with this number, and we're not going to be in any sort of bad position by not being able to raise tuition $69.75. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So I might add, Nichols is not the real NSU. We are.
Correct. 1884, 1948, no comparison. They try so hard, poor Nichols. We'll see how much longer they'll be with us. So I went there. Any other questions? So just make one up. Make one up, and I'll answer it for you. Think of something hard, something controversial. Yes.
Okay, so I believe it was actually in the student newspaper I read this. But when these fees were first proposed, I know there was at least one student who had the thought of, I'm not involved in most of these organizations. Why should I vote for an increase to the fee? What would you say to these students?
What would I say to them? Now, there's 2 different arguments that I've heard. One of them is, I don't participate in any of these. Why should I be assessed? Or versus, why should I vote for it? Let me touch on the assessment part first. What these fees are is basically a tax that students vote to assess themselves. And if students don't participate in these activities, well, really shame on them for not really taking advantage of everything that Northwestern State University has to offer. A lot of our students say, well, I just want to go to class and go home. Well, good luck getting a job after you graduate if all you do is go to class and go home. In this economy, that is not going to get you hired. People are looking for what you were involved in outside of the classroom. A 4.0 student who has no involvement whatsoever, no developed skills that they learned in these organizations or these meetings or these activities, they're going to have a really hard time getting hired versus the student who might have, 3.5, 3.7, but they know how to do a budget. They know how to run a meeting. They know how to communicate effectively. They know how to collaborate with people and work on projects and get a lot of these activities done. So that's what I would say on that end. A lot of concerns that I've gotten is some online students have emailed me and they said, online students don't participate in these activities. Why should we have to pay for them? Well, that's not true. We have lots of online students who do participate in these activities. We have SAB members who are taking all of their hours online. We have a lot of students that are here in Natchitoches who work on campus, who participate in these activities, yet their program might be 100% online because they may have additional jobs off campus where their schedule won't allow them to actually go to a face-to-face class. So there are going to be some students who may not participate or their schedule may not allow them to participate, but there's no way to differentiate between that type of student and the type of student who is 100% online but is still here on the Natchitoches campus. So part of the cost of attending college, especially a college like Northwestern State University, where we do offer programs outside of the classroom, that is just part of the cost of attendance. To attend a university such as Northwestern State. There are universities that don't charge these type of fees because that's not the type of university that it is. They don't offer a yearbook. They don't have a student government association. They don't have concerts. They don't have athletics. So if that may be more of the type of university that some individuals may need to attend if that's a huge concern of theirs. This institution, which has been around for 130 years, it has a long history and tradition of an active student life. And I don't know if we want to get away from that and focus solely on online learning. I don't think that's a good move for the university. I'm a doctoral student at a university in Louisiana that I go to. Some of my coursework is online, but I have to go for a very long face-to-face lecture once a month on a Friday and a Saturday. I pay $900 in student fees for activities that I don't participate in, can't participate in, but it's part of the cost of attendance of attending that particular university. I wanted a degree from a university that has a vibrant student life, that has these opportunities, that has a new student union, because that's what I want to be associated with. That's the work that I do as a professional. So I don't know if I could justify getting a degree, working in student life, and getting a degree from a university that doesn't have student life. So even though I can't participate in those activities, that is the type of university that I wanted to attend. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, Drew.
Just one more quick question. At the bottom of the fee assessment layout, it says that the Shreveport campuses will not be assessed these fees. Could you explain why, please?
The Shreveport campus will not be assessed these fees except for those that they already pay. The Shreveport campus has their own student government association and sort of their own campus life in a way. So they have additional fees that they pay on the Shreveport campus that students on the Natchitoches campus don't pay. So students at the Shreveport campus don't pay SAB fee. They don't pay SGA fee. They have their own SGA that does their own programming. They have their own speaker fee. But then there are some fees that they are assessed. They're assessed the athletic fee because I mean, it's an hour away. You can come and attend the athletic events. You can also watch all these athletic events online. They also pay for current sauce and potpourri. They have access to this. Their pictures are in it. They have access to the digital editions as well. However, I must say that if a Shreveport student came down here and wanted to participate in a Student Activities Board event, there's really, unless you went and looked up and saw on the system what campus they were at, and I really don't think anyone would turn them away. But there's a real division between the Natchitoches campus and the Shreveport campus. It's a lot more separate than, say, the Leesville campus or anything we have in maybe Alexandria or something like that. Because it's more nursing focused, so they have sort of more individualized needs. And more nursing specific needs at that campus than we have here, which is more broad and general. So that's why there are only a few fees on here that the Shreveport students pay. And those will be the only ones that they're affected by. Athletics, the potpourri, and the current sauce. I may be missing one, but I don't think so. And then they have their own additional fees that we don't pay. It would make no sense for an NSU student on the Natchitoches campus to pay a speaker fee in Shreveport. So, and vice versa. Yes.
Here's one quick question that I've been getting from a lot of students, and some SGA members have also brought this up. A lot of students have come to me complaining about they're not very happy about the SAB events, and they were pretty upset that SAB was not cut. And me personally, I don't agree with this. I like some of the events, but can you go into a little bit more detail to explain that? Because I'm getting that question a lot from people.
Well, this is what I would say as an administrator in student affairs here. And it's the same thing I would say for students who would have the same complaint if they had the same complaint with the Student Government Association. run for these organizations and try to come up with programs that you would like. If SGA is passing a lot of bills that students don't like, well, students need to run for Senate and change that and pass different bills. If students aren't happy with the activities that a particular organization is putting on that receive student funding, they can participate in those activities and they can change that. They can attend these meetings, they can serve on committees, and they can run for these representative or these Senate positions, and they can make, I would encourage them to create change from within and become involved in these organizations if they're not happy with what's currently going on. So does that answer your question?
That's the perfect answer to my question.
Oh, good, good. We strive for excellence here. So anyone else have any general questions or specific questions for budget unit heads or anything like that, or any comments that they would like to make? We're open to that as well. Oh, comment.
Just a quick confirmation. With these student fees, it's likely that the tuition would go up by at least this much anyway, correct?
Oh, yes, at least this much. This designates whatever the cost of the increase in the cost of attendance. This would designate that at least $69.75 of this would go towards student life, things that you could actually participate in, things that you would be able to have a voice in, and resources that you would actually be able to use, versus if it all went to a tuition increase, it would just sort of maintain the status quo. And that is really the main reason why Dr. Henderson is for this, because it's not like it's just this in itself is not going to increase the cost of attendance. It dedicates whatever the cost of attendance is, that $69.75 of it will go towards things that you yourselves as students can participate in. So does that answer that? Yes, ma'am. And then I'll get to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica. I serve on the SGA senator whatever. I just wanted to make a comment as a senator and a student here. When this was first brought up, I was very adamant about being against it, especially when it was brought in as percentages first. But after having all these forums, and SGA has worked really, really hard on this, and hearing all the department heads come, because my biggest concern was athletics, but I understand now that to function and to grow as a university, we need these increases. So I fully support it now.
All right, Ryan.
I actually have a question
Okay.
for
Good.
Burke.
Mr. Burke.
Several students have come to be concerned about being able to maintain the level of sports, the number of sports. Is that true that if there's not an increase, that the number of sports will not be able to be maintained at its current level?
Well, first of all, we can't decrease any sports. We have 14 sports, 8 women, 6 men, and that's the minimum number of sports to be at the Division I level. So if we didn't have this, the first choice would be, well, okay, we're not going to drop any sports, so we stay Division I. And then the next question becomes, at what cost are we Division I? At what level of really competitiveness do we become? Because you're operating basically on funds that really don't give you a chance to sustain competitiveness. And that's, like I said earlier, we've been fortunate. We've got, some of the old timers in town have said that we have the best coaching staff across the board that we've ever had. Now how long, we just lost our volleyball coaches to Clemson University, so you can't keep them forever. But if we didn't have the additional fee that we're requesting, we're going to stay Division I, but it's going to be really hard to attract coaches. Like right now, I'm looking for a volleyball coach, and they're attracted to this school because of the university. They're attracted to the program because it's one. They're attracted because we're paying a decently competitive salary, but all of a sudden, all that changes. And, it changes for volleyball. It starts to change for basketball. It starts to change for football, and the level of our program would drop. We probably have to cut scholarships, and I talked about that earlier, about how important that is. We'd have to start paying people less, start cutting staff. And quite honestly, we would be a shell of a Division I athletic program. Okay?
Thank you.
You bet.
I have a quick comment. Like Jessica, I'm an SGA senator, and when these fees were first proposed, I was kind of on the fence about some of them, but after hearing from the budget heads and hearing from Shane, and Garrett, and the fact that SGA worked very hard with everyone to basically put these together. I think this is good. I think a lot of organizations will benefit from this.
All right. Thank you very much. Corinne, would you grab the microphone for Legarius, please? Thank you. Okay. I just want to remind everyone here that student body elections are going to be March 24th and 25th. At the end of March 25th, we'll know whether or not the fees have passed. There'll be a runoff election on the 31st, but when it's a yes or a no vote, there's not going to be a runoff. So that's coming up very quickly. So we want to make sure that students have as much information as possible. We're going to send this information out again over Student Messenger and post on social media what the revisions are, and then encourage members of the student body to go out and vote. So are there any other final questions for me before we wrap this up, or any of the budget unit heads, or any comments that anyone would like to make before we end this? All right. Well, I want to thank you all very, very much for coming. And let's go, Dean. Let's fork them.
And that concludes this afternoon's live broadcast of the Student Fee Revision Forum, again held by the Student Government Association. The elections will be held on March 24th and 25th, so that's coming up soon. If you want to see a recap of tonight's forum, you can always do that by going to YouTube. We did do a film broadcast of tonight's forum, so you can go check out the KNWD YouTube account. It's got KNWD the Demon, and all hour and 15 minutes of tonight's broadcast is going to be there. So thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to go back to regular programming here shortly, but hope you found this fee forum broadcast informative. And again, you can check out the entire live broadcast by going to our KNWD YouTube page. That's KNWD the Demon on YouTube. So thanks for listening back to live programming here on the Demon.